That's mine, Jim Krager. The thing I'm showing here, it's not the bowl itself, it's the co-rosing. I'm not sure how many people have heard of it, but it's basically the process you make knife cuts, or with like with carving, it's not a carving sharp knife. It's got a fairly blunt point to it, and you make knife cuts, and then you fill it up with, well, most of these are filled up with cinnamon. It's ground up. Coffee is another thing they use, but the name comes from co-rosing, means rosings. I don't know what that really means, but it's some kind of decoration. And the cold is originally used coal dust for the to fill in the cracks.
So once you put that, whatever the filler is, what is that like before you finish it? And then does the finish hold it in, or what keeps it from just spreading all around?
I actually apply it with a oil. I put oil in it when I'm finishing it. So you mix oil with the whatever you're coloring, and it helps it stay in. And you actually burnish it. Once you actually got it in there, you burnish it so the surface actually is fairly smooth by the time you get done. So you burnish the surface back to hopefully to the point where you hardly feel the cuts. You can still feel them, but they're not as obvious as they are when they're open.
So is it like a tung oil you're using that you put it in, or is it?
Well, on these I use the same finish I use for finishing the bowls. I use the three-part mix, of the third mix of polyurethane, boiled linseed oil, and anyhow thinner. And
yeah.
But on the spoon, when it's more of a thing for it's a really common thing to do to wooden spoons. And that's where I got it from. It's a real decoration. They do some really fine decoration on the wooden spoons. And on that, I just use whatever oil I'm going to finish the spoon with.
Very innovative.
It's like your walnut oil, or when they finish spoons, the same thing we'd finish a salad bowl with.
Did you say to use cinnamon? Is that what I heard?
Yes, cinnamon.
Really? Wow.
It's the best one to start with because it's finely ground. Like coffee, right. I haven't got coffee fine enough for it yet. So you have to have a really fine powder to get into the cracks.
Wow. That's very interesting. I've never heard of it.
Yeah, by coffee, you might want to turn the mortar and pestle.
What's it? I've got one too. I tried that and it hadn't worked. It hadn't got what I wanted yet, but I hadn't tried real hard.
I found that if you use used coffee, after it's been perked and dry it out, it grinds it. It's much finer.
Okay, I've got some of that I stole. Well, I took my wife's coffee little cups and
and
I hadn't worked real hard on it, but like I say, the cinnamon works really well. I like and like on some of them you can see. Well, actually, let me explain. On this littler one, on the outside of the bowl, I didn't co-rose that. That was done with a sorbet tool, and I probably won't do that anymore because it doesn't leave a cut that actually fills it. You can see it, it makes a little coloration to it, but it doesn't stand out like it should. It's too open a cut.
Right.
Be a great way to disguise a couple cracks in the bowl.
Yeah.
Or highlight them, right?
Yeah.
Hey, Jim, you've got some of that white powder he could use.
What's that?
You've got some of that white powder he could use, right?
Yeah, how about
I
powdered
don't know
pigments
about
like
that.
lamp black?
How about instant coffee?
I think the president was talking about cocaine. I'm just saying.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's a
thank you.
bad
Just
joke.
making sure.
Could you spell the term used to name this?
Let me see, I got it, yeah.
It's right there.
Yeah, it's KOLROFING.
I bet that started as KOHL, which would be the German for
KOL.
charcoal. Yeah, I know, but I bet the German for charcoal is KOHL.
Well, this
Coal.
is Swedish, so
And they're very similar.
Yeah.
Yeah, I bet there's a relationship there.
So after you press the cinnamon into the incisions, do you clean it off and spray lacquer, or how do you get it to hold?
like I said, I burnished the surface. I used a rock for some of them, and I've used a steel rod for some of it. So
Hmm.
just to close it back up. And then, like I said, I used
okay.
oral finishes on all of them. I mean, like I say, for this, like I say, it's more of a normal finish or a normal decoration for wooden spoons.
Okay,
And there they normally use, they wouldn't, you very seldom finish a spoon with lacquer or anything. So I'm not saying you can't use lacquer. I'm just saying that, and like I say, I mixed the oral with the cinnamon when I was pushing it in.
Right.
And
Well, that's very,
it kind of dyes the whole thing a little bit. You get the cinnamon darkens it a little bit, and then it fills them up. And then, like I say, you close them by burnishing it.
okay.
that's it's a new one for me. No, that's interesting.
I put a link to it in the chat.
Okay, thank you. All right.
And it's not well known because there's only like one book on it, or one. I don't even know if there's a book. There's a video on it. There's one video and a few YouTubes on it. So,
All right. Well, very interesting.
thank you.
All right, John.
So sometime last year, I started making earrings, 2 years ago, for my wife's anniversary, for her anniversary gift. I decided to do ivory, and I made some ivory earrings, and so I just kept going from there, and I started trying to be creative with a few things, and I bought those little bees on Etsy from somebody. They're polymer clay. My daughter's into bees. She likes honeybees and everything. So those are a little big. They're actually not technically a whole lot larger than regular earrings. They're only about 1.25 inches, 1.5 inches tall. They're about 1 inch in diameter though. So it's just a piece of ambrosia maple scrap that's just chucked up and carved some beads into it. I have a little pyramid point tool that I made, and I use it for most of the cuts that I do on my earrings. Just this little pyramid point tool that I made. Drill a little hole in one of them, and then thread some findings in. I have a little pin vise to go ahead and drill the hole for the screw eye. There's not really a whole lot to the process, just getting down tied into it.
Nice.
You know, if you would split that so that the flat went against the face, it would have cut down on the bulk of them.
Right, that was the first one I did. I was thinking about trying to scale it down a little bit, but I wanted to put the bees on it, and those were the smallest bees I could get. And I wanted the scale, proportion that they weren't like giant compared to the little hive.
Are they hollow?
No, but I mean, they're just ambrosia maple. They're not particularly heavy.
You would
Yeah,
also
cool.
solve the problem of having to make two. You just make one, split it down and half on each ear and you got it done.
Right.
So, was very interesting.
Thanks. Lucky daughter. I think it's cool.
Yeah.
These are awesome.
Yeah. You solved the problem. I tried making earrings for a while, and it would take me 5 minutes to make the first one and 15 minutes to make the second one look like the first one. So I like
mean
this
the
new
fifth
solution
one?
here.
The
Yeah.
fifth one.
Yeah,
The beauty of these is they don't have to be the same.
I know. That's what I said. No, you solved that problem.
I think there was like a limit of 2 or something on turnings, but I also made a beer bottle and Pilsner glass set. I've made a few of the wine bottles. Those were actually, my mom started going down the Duplin winery, so I made her a pair and gave to her, and then I started making a couple. This one's now on Etsy. The beer bottle actually, now I can tell people that I have a beer bottle in my lathe tool set to use as a pattern.
That's very clever. Like I said,
You can submit multiples of a kind. Just put them in one photo.
Right. I didn't want to I made like a dozen in the last couple months, and I started putting them on Etsy. I didn't want to flood it with too many pictures.
Very cool.
I did the same thing in olive wood and pink ivory and bloodwood and all that. So
that's cute. John, is Paul on?
I haven't seen him on here. He's about the position I am. He's got 2 little girls, like 8 and 10. He's probably busy. He did say he was going to join the meeting tonight. I hadn't heard from him in the last couple hours.
Well, if you happen to see him come on, we'll go back to his piece. But this is a potential somebody who was a guest at our meeting the other night who's thinking about joining. So
I've known him for a number of years. He got Harbor Freight, one of the little square benchtop lathes, I think, a couple Christmas, right before COVID, right around December 19, he got it. And beginning of 2020, I was going to try to start inviting him to the meetings with us. And obviously, how that worked out. But he's got some carbide tools that he's been using. He's never even been to Klingspor's. I just trying to get him up there this weekend. I'm going to try to
well, yeah, just I mean, if he's interested, just or if you see him join later, just let us know and we'll come back to his piece here.
Hey, Steve.
And tell him to bring those Reese's with him next time.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's something different about your presentation, but I'm not seeing the speaker on the screen. Normally in the video, we get a small window of the person speaking.
At the top, it says you are viewing Steve's screen.
All right. Well, let me remove the spotlight and see whether that helps. And if you set yours to speaker view now, hopefully it should change. But all right. Well, I just removed the spotlight, so let me know if that helps.
No.
All right, Merle.
Yes. This year, during teaching classes, I had, when I was making mallet blanks and bowl blanks and other blanks for the classes, these are the pieces that I had left over from January through June. And I glued them all together because they were starting to get in my way. And so I actually made 2 pieces with stuff that came from the material that I used in my classes. This one is about 2 inches thick and about 12 inches in diameter. And it's just a little platter. And the only reason it's 12 inches in diameter is because that's how long my pieces were, and that's how wide my surface planer is. So.
Cool.
And I can relate. I feel your pain.
Yeah. And just so that you know, this is as close to segmented turning as I ever will get.
That's okay. It takes a special somebody, Merle.
I know.
I didn't say it was a good thing.
This
So
is, this was the other blank that I did, which actually turned onto a bowl. It's 4 layers, and I did feet on it. The materials that I'm working on for classes for June through the end of November, I got them in 16-inch lengths, so I'm making them I'm making another one. This one, I only have enough material though for 1 bowl instead of a bowl and a platter. But it's basically out of cherry, maple, ambrosia maple, some walnut, some white oak. I
What,
think
no
that's-
poplar?
No,
So did you was this just a chunk that was, you know, you just built up layer? I mean, so you.
Yep.
All
Yep.
that stuff. Okay.
these were all like 1 inch wide that were cutoffs from either a chunk of the wood that I get for my classes, or they were maybe had maybe 1.5 inches left or on something or something like that. I just took them to the bandsaw, cut them down to 1.25 inches, ran them through the planer, glued them together, ran it through the planer again, glued them all together, and that's it.
Well, Merle, if you want to do them 16, after you get them glued up, you can come over and use the drum sander if you want.
No, I'm gonna take it to work and use the Klingspor's 20-inch planer.
Okay.
tomorrow.
All right. All right. I didn't know you were still working. I thought you were retired.
Well, I only go to work 1 day a week.
Okay. All right. Well, so what do you use for, you just use some type bond to glue?
Type on 2, that was it.
Okay.
But it
Cool.
did take for these 2 bowls, it took almost a quart of glue.
Okay, well, that's a lot of surface area.
Yep.
At least you consider coring them after you do it.
This one was too small. Maybe I'll have to see what it's like when I get the 16-inch one done.
All right. Thank you. All right, Terry.
Yeah, this is
Alright.
just a pretty simple bowl, segmented. I don't know what the wood is, but I love to have stories behind my pieces. And the story behind this is some of my friends saw my first ever segmented piece that I showed a couple months ago. They said, "Can you do that with any kind of wood?" And I said, "Yes." And they said, "Well, we took the sideboards and the bottom boards off of a frame for one of our beds that's been in the family for 3 generations and has a 1904 date on the headboard." And they gave those to me. So I made a bowl for
Very cool.
them. So the bottom is red oak. And then, yeah, I have no idea what this wood is, but it came out a lot lighter than, you know, what it looked like when I took it off of the piece, off of the bed frame. And has a really nice chatoyance on it.
It looks like maple, but it's really hard to tell.
Yeah, there was, I ended up getting like 3 different kinds of wood out of this. The cross pieces are pine, and this is actually just a fitted piece along the bottom that supports the pine cross pieces. And then the sideboards look like maple. They're very light wood, but this is a little different. So
the
I just
top-
call it a bed bowl.
Yeah.
So it's about 6 inches in diameter and about 4 inches tall.
Oh, that's not bad at all.
All right, here we go with the puns. Get ready.
Yeah. So it looked a lot darker, and that's why I chose the red oak for the bottom, but it turns out the red oak was a lot darker than this wood is once I cleaned off all the surface skunk. The side frames on this had like 5 layers of paint on them of different colors. Because like I said, it's been in their family for like 3 generations now.
All that lead paint.
Yeah.
Ooh,
All right.
That's cool.
Yeah, no, that's nice. No,
So I'm obviously gonna give this to them. I'm just waiting for them to move into their new house.
Right. The joints all look very, very well done.
Yeah, that's all done on my chop saw. I do it on the chop saw.
Must have a more accurate chop saw than I have.
It comes out pretty close, but I do the half ring glue up method so I can true up the 2 half rings before
Right.
I glue those together.
Cool. Very nice.
Thank you.
You ever try the wedgie sled? You'll love it if you try it.
Yeah, I never built myself one yet. I've just been
Oh.
too lazy to build one.
You'll love it.
Yeah, I know everybody talks about it, but I was just too lazy to build it.
Maybe you'll see it next month.
Yeah.
That sounds good. Okay. So this is another bowl. Ended up being, it's a spalted maple. It has a little bit of ambrosia in it. I just, did a natural edge bowl, and when I got it done, I was kind of bored with it. Didn't think it was very nice. So I wanted to do something else with it. So I pierced it. So that's
what
the end result of a pierced natural edge bowl. I just
Definitely
kind
not
of,
boring anymore.
yeah, I just kind of put a band there that kind of reflected the top. So you can see it's not pierced as far. Well, it's pierced as far, but it doesn't go down as close to the bottom on the high ends as it does on the low end.
And this is a soup bowl.
Yeah, yeah. It's crying out. It's crying out to have something in it, I think, with color, but I don't think soup is the thing that's going to do it.
No.
Fruit
So
Loops.
what did you use to cut the holes?
I kind of done, I did it the way I did before. I basically started out by kind of freehand drawing out the irregular pattern. And then I take like a 5mm drill and I drill a hole kind of in the center of each of the pattern spots. And then I use a cut-saw burr on my Dremel to basically clean them out. And it takes a while because this is, I think, 3/16 of an inch thick.
Yeah.
Like a
It's a-
conical burr or just a straight burr?
It's kind of a conical burr. Yeah. And then it's just hand sanding. I put some double-sided tape like on a small dowel, and I wrap some sandpaper around it, and I just go through the grits to kind of smooth out the sides and stuff. It takes a while.
Yeah.
how about filling it with fantastical, never before seen turned fruits in neon colors?
Yeah, that's my thought, although it's only like 5 3/4 inches in diameter. So my thought similar to that was I've always wanted to turn some Easter eggs, and I was thinking it might be a
Oh,
nice bowl
yes.
for some colored Easter eggs.
Perfect.
But it's kind of along the same lines that you're suggesting. If I turn fruit, I'd want to have it multicolored. So something like that, I think would make this thing pop a little better. Good
I concur.
suggestion.
So it hardly even looks like it has a finish on it. Is it just the photograph's not showing up on there? Or is it?
No, because I want it does have a finish on it. It has an oil finish on it, but I put it on and a couple of times, but I wiped it off each time. I actually tried to keep this one not shiny because I started out doing a shiny, but I thought with the piercing and stuff, the shiny didn't look right to me.
Right.
And so I kept it a real matte finish on the outside. Although it is I think it's antique, Minwax antique oil or something on the
Right.
finish.
I mean, it must take a long time to carve those things out, because that's, yeah, with the 3/16 thickness, boy, that's a lot.
Yeah, well, I tell you, the carving isn't isn't the most boring part of it. The sanding to try to get all of those things relatively smooth is the most boring part for me, because it's all hand sanding on, sandpaper on little dowels, and I can't even sand the whole thing with one piece of sandpaper. I have to replace it on the dowel a couple of times.
So have you thought a sanding drum on the Dremel didn't work? Because they make them small, they have 1/2 inch and 1/4 inch discs or drums for those things. It seems like-
Yeah, I have the 1/2 inch. I don't have the 1/4 inch. So a 1/4 inch might work. A 1/2 inch is too big for a lot of these spots.
Right.
On the scrolling things, I use an 1/8 inch drill bit, cut a slot in it, and make a little flap sander. And that works fabulous.
Yeah, I really need to figure out some way to automate the sanding a little bit, but I also want to keep it, pretty flat. I don't want to round off the outside edges or the inside edges. So I try to be pretty careful about the sanding. And I'm still experimenting. I mean, it takes a long time, but I can just sit outside and enjoy nature if it's not this damn hot. Sorry. And, do the sanding.
Jim, Dremel actually makes an 1/8 inch shaft with a slot in it.
Oh, now you tell me.
Well, let's put it this way. I don't know whether they still make it. I have a Dremel thing, mandrel that has about a 1 inch piece of it that's slotted, and that's the only thing I ever could assume that it was for, was to make some kind of flap sander for it. But yeah, because it'd be pretty hard to cut a slot in an 1/8 inch.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So,
But it works fabulous. In scroll work and that sort of thing, you can stick it right in there, and it doesn't round over the corners. It's a flap sander.
right.
Right.
But anyway,
If anyone tried to adapt a scroll saw, you would need, instead, you wouldn't be able to do it on that table, because you would need just almost like an anvil coming off the end of it. But seems like if you had a scroll saw with a spiral, one of those round spiral bits in there, it would be a faster way to do this. Almost like the edge of a sewing machine type thing, where, I don't know, just
Klingspor makes a strip of sandpaper about a 1/2 inch wide with plastic ends on them, and you can put it in there, and that works good too for straight slots.
right.
Fabulous.
The diameter is too small for a scroll saw. You wouldn't be able to see it and work through the other side.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm
You can
kind of
also
thinking, could you hook something onto your reciprocating saw? Tape or glue the dowel with the sandpaper onto a piece of the blade and let that do the work for you.
Well, these things aren't very huge, right? So you also have the problem of holding this thing in one hand and, keeping the drill or any power tool, parallel and not skipping off and stuff. I mean, I never cut off, when I do this, I always do the piercing before I take it off the lathe. Because, I can lock
Third
the
hand.
headstock, and basically it's my third hand. But sanding them becomes a pain in the butt, because you're rotating this thing and moving it around and holding it in one position and then sanding it. And with a tool, it will work, but it's a little more difficult to control.
So
Terry, do you have the,
remember
do you have the
Trent Bosch's
Bosch,
folder? Sorry.
yeah, I see the same thing. I was that Trent Bosch holding I mean, if you have it in a chuck, boy, that thing, that is just a wonderful addition to the shop.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that, but I haven't, I've just started playing with this and I really haven't ponied up the money to do that yet.
It's not that expensive, and I have it, so he's got a little slide mount. I mounted it to a 2x8.
Okay.
So I can sit that in my bed if I want, or I can put it on my lap and have a nice, easy work surface.
Okay, well, I need to look into that again because I'm not going to do this all the time, but I'm kind of pleased with a couple of the pieces that I've done, so I want to continue doing some piercing.
Definitely worth considering that. So, well,
Terry,
nicely done.
Terry,
you.
the,
Jeff,
the,
yeah,
the thing I did was bought a screw, a 1 inch by 8 thread screw that fits my chuck. And you just slide that up from the bottom of the banjo, lock it in, and leave this thing on the chuck and work with it sitting up on the banjo to hold it for you. It makes it
That's-
real easy to spin around. And I think that bolt cost me $3.
yeah, that sounds like a good idea too, Jeff. Thanks. Good, thank you.
All right. Thanks, Terry.
Yep.
Norm.
Speaking of the heat, my garage is not air conditioned. It's pretty nasty. So it's this time of year that I really appreciate having that NC State membership. I went there last weekend. My wife was out of town. I just put time in on that same machine that Alan was using. And this is the piece. This is a big piece of oak, about 17 inches. And Alan, as I say, turned down to this shape. Still a little heavy, but not really heavy. Nice and even. It started rattling. The lathe started shaking. Anything beyond about 850. It just shouldn't happen. There's nothing, there's a little bit of worm eating on that, but not enough to throw it off balance like that. But this is a really old piece of oak that I've been sitting on for ages. It was about 3 inches thick, so that's just under 18-inch diameter. And I'm getting ready. So Carol Nix, who runs the craft center, wants me to do a class in laser etching on platters. So I'm trying to take a whole bunch of the blanks I've got and just turn them and get the surface plane. Normally, if you go to the next photo, normally what I do is I just turn the outside and make them flat. So I can do whatever I want with the laser and then final turn the inside. But that oak, I just wanted to take a lot of it out because it was so big. I left about 3 1/4 inch on that rim, and I've got ideas for designs. I don't know if you guys remember years ago, I did Trent actually helped me take a photograph. Picture yourself in winter lying on the ground, looking up through the trees in the forest, all the limbs coming at you. It was a great photo. I just liked it. And I did a wood burning by hand. But I've got a photograph and I want to try and do that on that outer rim. I think it's going to be kind of interesting. Just a bunch of tree limbs coming toward the center, like you're looking up into the canopy.
You
The other
didn't
one,
core that, did you?
no,
Okay.
no, it's too shallow. But I again, knowing I want to put a design on the rim, I undercut the rim a little bit so I can get as much bowl out of it. Keep the wall thickness fairly stable, but still have a nice heavy rim.
So that piece that's standing up there, that's a whole separate piece.
Yes.
Okay.
Is that not cool? That's another piece of that wormy ash.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's got it going on.
That's a beautiful piece of oak. I mean, a lot of times oak doesn't have that kind of variety in it. So,
But do you notice on the upper left corner there, it's got a lot of worm eating out.
yeah.
Not quite. I had another big bowl piece like that. There was a ton of that, and I tried all different kinds of things to fill it, and I was not happy with any of it. So I may not even try to fill this one, just because it's not really threatening the integrity of the piece.
Right.
You cinnamon.
Yeah.
I just learned it. Yeah.
It's a little big for cinnamon.
Use
The
coffee
magic
ground.
kernel.
Yeah. So this piece that's standing up there, that's just a blank that you're going to do something else with.
No, it's actually turned. It's about the same shape as the other one. I just didn't touch the interface.
Oh, okay, got it.
And that's
Okay.
normally what I do for the laser designs. I just, leave it as a blank canvas, then do the
Got it.
laser work on it, and then final turn the inside out.
Ah, so what prompted you on the bigger piece to go ahead and just create the rim before you lasered it?
Well, because I wanted to make sure it's going to sit for a few months, and I wanted to
Right.
try and get it to do its movement before I burn the laser on it, because it's so big
Got it.
comparatively. And also, 3 1/4 inch thickness around that rim is plenty of design room.
Right. Okay, cool. Be curious to see how that turns out. So when you laser that, does the densities between with that very broad grain, does it burn deeper into the areas like the
We'll see on the wood. On ash, yes.
okay.
And I have one of the first laser pieces I did, I called it Desert Platter. And it was a tree form, a very natural branch form. But if you look really closely, you see definitive lines like those wave lines in that ash.
Right.
The laser burns deeper in certain plateaus than others.
Yeah, I found that it doesn't burn as deep like in a knot or something, or in any kind of irregular area.
Yeah, and I would expect that area that's a little wormy would be quite a bit softer. It might burn a lot more there than some other places, but it'll be an interesting experiment.
Yeah, so I hear what you're saying. The weird thing about the worminess in ash, it doesn't do that. It doesn't get punky around the wormholes. The wormholes are very precise for some reason. See the little hash marks on the face of that platter?
Yep.
They're like, those are little wormholes. They're like 4 or 5 worm tracks all together, and they don't weaken the surrounding wood at all. It's just holes.
Yeah, I'm interested in that class, Norm.
I'll let you know when they put it up.
All right. Thanks. That'll be I'm sure hopefully we'll see that one again.
Yeah. This is just a big piece of walnut. So it was about 16 when I started, but I had some stuff on the rim I had to pull out. But this was weird. I couldn't see any ring shake in it, but it had a strange balance factor where, and this is on my home lathe. I did this before it got really hot. And I could not get this thing faster than 550 without vibration.
Is it because of that sapwood on that one side?
And I don't think so, because it's just a hint of sapwood.
Yeah.
But it's a little challenging to get big cuts at 550.
Oh yeah. It's like being stuck in the school zone and driving 20 miles an hour.
Yep. You sit there
Yeah.
patiently thinking, well, it'll get better. It'll get better. No, it didn't.
It never gets better.
I'm sure you tried to speed it up and go past the wobble,
Right.
but you had to come back down though, right?
Yeah. Right.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. I tell students, like, you can try that, but if the wobble gets worse, stop.
Yeah,
If it stays
right.
the same, you keep going until it goes away. But if it gets faster or wilder, you can't get there. We said, what's the story they say? You might get there, but the lathe will be across the room when you do.
That's a
Martin,
good one.
My microphone was off now. May have trouble with sound. What laser were you using on the other?
I haven't used the laser on the other. You mean the ones I did previously?
Yeah, I mean, what laser do you use?
It's the one NC State just got. And I'm sorry,
Oh,
but I don't
okay.
remember the brand anymore. But
ProTech.
I think it's a 60 watt ProTech.
Yeah, I think I remember them getting a ProTech.
Yeah.
A lot of fun.
Yep. So
Does that
I
do the-
just went without a foot.
Does that do the whole rim, or do you have to do segments of it?
No, it's big. It's
It
got
does the
at
whole
least,
thing. Okay.
yeah, it's got 20, probably 2 foot in both dimensions.
Oh, boy.
Plenty of room.
Okay.
It's massive.
Okay.
Yeah. So, do you have a finish on this one?
Do I have a finish on that? No.
No.
Still sitting in here. Yep, sitting
I mean,
over on my
that's-
table.
No, that's actually, I mean, to have that kind of grain without, I mean, the reason I ask is that if it doesn't have a finish on it, when you put an oil finish on that, boy, I'll tell you, that grain should just pop right out of there. That's a beautiful piece of walnut.
Yes. Mhm.
I hope so. Thanks.
Turning's pretty good too, but the wood is.
Yeah, turning's okay.
Don't screw it up.
Wait,
Yeah, you can't see any sanding marks at all.
It's grown in North Carolina because it's red and it's got big grain.
Is that from the iron in the soil, Jim, or is it?
Yep, yep. And the grain is, you wouldn't find grain anywhere near that far apart in Pennsylvania, Ohio, New York. Half
Good to
that
know.
size at the most.
So that's our hot, wet summers cause that, you're
Yep.
saying?
Yep.
And iron stained soil. All right, nicely done. Preston, the hell are you doing here?
Hey, what? These are those little bottle stopper blanks from, I think it's Cousteau, or how do you say it, Norm?
Cousino.
Yeah, Cousino. They put them on sale often, and I bought some before, and then I bought some from Norm, and then I was looking at Rebecca making patterns with a similar kind of wood. Maybe it was just plywood that she was using, but I thought, well, maybe I could do that. That's the top left, and then the big picture is going to be a small bowl. I just thought it'd be pretty cool. And I'm not sure what I'm going to do with the cutoffs, but there's still plenty of stuff to play with more there.
They're all end grain glue joints.
Yeah,
What'd you use to glue them?
it's just a tight bomb.
Yeah, I'd be a little worried about that end grain, but it'll be interesting to see if it holds together.
Yeah, the next
Preston, she
picture.
uses, Preston, Rebecca uses skateboards, but same, it's, I
Okay.
mean, still,
Yeah.
it's still plywood that's been,
Mhm.
maple ply that's been laminated.
Right.
Yeah.
But if
Yeah.
you look at the plywood, you're only 50% end grain because your grain swaps 90 degrees every other layer.
Oh,
True.
good point.
Yeah,
You should have a good solid glue up right there.
So Preston, you got a 50% chance it's gonna blow up. This is great.
I'll definitely keep my hood on, right?
The problem is, this is the Spectraply, it's not plywood. All the grain goes the same direction.
Right.
Oh, does it?
It's not every other grain.
Well,
Well,
forget what I said.
that was a really valid point. I liked it. And Preston, that thing's small enough. I think you'll be fine.
Yeah. And then,
What? I don't like where that thumb is. I have to tell you that, Preston, when I saw that.
well, that was just there for the picture. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Tape up the outside rim while you're turning it, at least initially, Preston, to give yourself a little more leeway.
That's a great idea, Terry. Thanks. Yeah, so this is one thing that I got from Norm also in some of his birdhouses. He uses these blanks, and instead of just using them normal, of course, you have to spend more effort on it. And you got to cut precise, and then look at the next picture, and then glue them back together. And I had to make a little jig for that with that kind of epoxy tape that glue doesn't stick to. But you get a really interesting ply. It's not small anymore on one dimension. It's big.
So
Yeah,
do we
what
end
happens,
up
you
with-
end up getting
on the
the
die?
kind of the flame pattern even without adding curvature.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So you're cutting it in half and then re-gluing it to get it on the die, basically. The die
correct.
top.
Uh-huh.
Got
It's
it.
the
Okay.
it's a non-cut piece that's pieces that are glued together or edges
Makes
on
sense.
sides. Yeah.
So what are you gonna do with that?
Well, these are gonna be birdhouses.
Okay, cool.
Nice.
They're gonna
Hey,
be
you know,
small ones. 'Cause that's
One
about an
tip, so
inch.
you know the color matching on the back,
Yeah,
right? If it's not right, like it's supposed to be yellow then green to continue the pattern. If it's
Right.
not right, what I've done is go to the belt sander and just take a layer off to get to the color you want.
yep, I did have to do that once because one of them was irregular, yeah.
Yep.
Well, be curious
then-
to see what the finished product looks like.
That little wedge there that I made was one that I cut the wrong way. So it had the right angle on it to,
That's a good idea. I usually just use a ton of clamps and I tape them before clamping it.
yeah.
All right. All right, Jim,
Okay.
these are phenomenal. I have to tell you, Jim, I saw this picture and I love these things.
You like these?
I
These
did.
are ampules.
I just
I
think
got a
it's
hold of
so
some ampules. An ampule looks like a little, these things look like test. I keep using my mouse. You guys can't see it. Anyway, an ampule is looks like a test tube kind of thing, but it's got some humps and bumps in it. They use it for samples. You fill the bottom of this thing with whatever you want as a sample, a liquid or a powder or whatever. And then they heat that top part and twist it, and it seals the sample in glass. And I found a bunch of these. I got a whole bunch of these things that they were throwing them out, some chemistry lab. But anyway, I made the outside. These are probably 6.5 inches in diameter. That's Jatoba in the center with maple on the front and back. They're probably, 1 3/4 inches thick, and kind of fun to do. The whole thing is turned with a pin chuck, and then the pin chuck is in there's a hole in the center of this thing, and that later gets cut out with the scroll saw. So it's not there.
So
This is one of the things, Jim, that I just sit there scratching my head because I cannot figure out everything involved.
Wow, yeah.
I do it as I go. Anyway,
They're gorgeous.
my problem is I can think faster than I can turn sometimes. But anyway,
My problem is I turn faster than I think. It's a dangerous combination.
the blank has to be glued up. And a lot of it has to be done in the square, so you get the thing lined up and everything. I mean, the hole's got to go down through the center. The hole for the ampule's got to go down through the center. And I don't know, it's fun turning.
Very cool.
Yeah.
no,
Is that a-
it's
is
just,
that a piece
they're
of,
just striking, Jim.
Is it masonite? Did you burn that rim? that?
Yeah, I used Formica on that.
Yeah.
Well, the other one is walnut. What's that walnut called?
Peruvian.
Peruvian walnut and mulberry. Yeah, the dark one's Peruvian
Yeah.
walnut.
Yeah,
Nice.
those unsealed ampules are really cool shape and design.
Yeah, I guess they come all different designs. It was new to me, but I just couldn't throw the thing out, and I thought there's got to be a use for the thing. And a regular bud vase where you drill a hole down the middle and like you do offset turning or something. I've done some of those, and it didn't show off the areas I wanted to show off. So,
Yeah, you've really done a great job opening that up so you see the
it kind of fits the
ampule
tube, yeah.
and stuff. Yeah, that's really great design, Jim.
Yeah,
And
the aesthetics of that, Jim, are just, I just love it.
I just wrote an article. It's going to be in Woodturning magazine. I don't know, one of these days. But the opening down the center that's half cut on a bandsaw and then back. You'd have to see the article. From the outside, you do the radius around where the tube is and come halfway in. And then there's a 3/8 hole in there. So you could turn the bandsaw blade around and come out without backing out of the hole, without backing out of the piece. And then you turn the whole piece with that half cut. And when you get all done, you swing an arc, 1 3/8 or whatever it is for the bottom of that circle, and then cut the bottom out, and the whole center disappears. I'm trying to find a use now for the center because it's got 3/8 holes in it. It's got a hole down the middle. It's a really neat little piece of wood, but maybe someday.
I don't know, for a second there, Jim, I thought you were speaking Peruvian. I don't know what the hell you just said. That's pretty impressive, though.
I'll hold up the center. This is the center piece. See, it's got a hole down the middle and it's got all kinds of little drill things. And anyway, that's the center of the piece. And this is more where the tube goes in. But this is cut halfway down. Then you turn around in this hole here and come back out, because it's hard to back a bandsaw blade out of it, something like that. And then cut the other side. That leaves this back end of it. This whole back end then is suspending the piece. So it's turned on a screw chuck here. I love that screw chuck. I started using that and damn, that thing works. Anyway,
I'm pretty sure I'm playing like tic-tac-toe and Jim's like playing 4D chess.
no.
Yeah.
Wait till you see the next one. I got another one coming up. You won't believe the next one.
Tim, I'm thinking demo here, but we'll
Yeah,
talk.
me too.
Michael Campbell playing 3D chess.
I might be able to demo that. I don't know whether it could or not. but
We'll talk.
yeah,
All right. Well, that's good. That's great, Jim. I just, as
Thank you.
usual, just that is, I think it's striking. So
wood turning. I don't know. I'm not affiliated with Wood Turning magazine, but for people that are starting out, it's out of England and it's expensive. But American Woodturner is great if you want to see all this fine art stuff. But if you want to learn how to turn wood, they've got like 6 or 8 projects in there with material lists and drawings and step-by-step instructions. And I started writing for them. I really liked it. In fact, I've done so much with England now, I can almost speak English. I can understand them almost half the time.
It's a great
Scots and
magazine.
Irish.
It's not that expensive if you go digital, right? Do you have it shipped
Yeah,
to
I
you?
think you're right. Yeah, I think you're right.
It's only about 40 something a year. And you can see them on your computer, or there's a iPad or iPhone.
For
app
beginners, it's got to be great. It's too bad nobody knows about it, but anyway.
all right.
I do
Well,
know.
thanks. All right, Michael.
All right. All right. This is, you guys, I've got a list of puns, so you need to do a pun count on this. My first one is welcome to show and tell. That's the first one I wrote down. I did spend time on this. You guys remember Art's Lost Wood process? This
Yeah.
was my trial. This was just, hey, I got some scraps. I want to try this. And I tried it. I'm not going to pretend like I'm super proud of it, but it was fun to try his process and then add some color to it and some carving. And it originally was supposed to be a whale tail, but whales don't have flukes like that. So now it's just become a fish tail.
Hey, it goes with our discussion at the start of the meeting, before the start of the meeting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to tell the scale of this as pun number 2.
So that's turned on 2 centers?
It is. So it's the process where I think I had a 1-inch slab of maple scrap. It was maple burl. or I'm sorry, it was 8/4. I cut it down the middle, so I had 1 inch, 1 inch, and then I put a piece of scrap 1 inch between it, laminated it all, turned it, delaminated it, and then carved the fluke.
Oh, okay.
So not anything that I'm like, oh, this is an award winner, but it was a fun process, and it gave me a different perspective and new ideas.
Yeah, I like it.
It's a pretty neat idea.
What are the dimensions of this?
I thought I
it's
sent them to you.
in your
Oh,
da-
yeah, so
description.
6.5 tall.
Okay.
Unless you were setting me up for that scale joke again. I don't know what you were going to. And then I was going to do I'm almost finished. That was another one. And then my final one was I am fishing for compliments. So if I can get points on my puns, I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
I was just gonna say you have to market this to fishermen, but then you
Yeah.
need the colors to look more like, the fish colors.
Yeah, I just thought it was fun. I mean, his process is cool. The things he does are very cool. I'm probably going to mimic some of that. I like that goblet he did, but I just started turning it, and I just kind of was feeling a whale tail, and then it didn't come out as a whale tail. It came out more as a fish tail, but it was still fun. It was a little, half-day project.
I can't believe you left one behind, Mike.
I know.
You thought this was going to be, you planned this all out, but it turned out to just be a fluke.
Yeah. Good one. Thanks. Thank you. Thanks for adding in the fun. I appreciate it.
We knew somebody would take the bait.
There you go.
He said
All right.
early on it wasn't a fluke.
Right.
Just floundering around.
Perfect.
All right, moving on.
Yeah, stop your carping.
I love you guys.
All right, Lan, are you on?
I am. This one is mine. It's just a platter. It's about 15 inches and turned on 4 total axes to get it, and then dyed with just 5-ings black and blood red dye. And then I carved the center of it. I carved a wolf into it. It was for my daughter. And that was about it.
That's epic.
It is. Now, did you hand carve that center?
Well, it's done with the wood burner and micro motor.
Nice. Looks good.
So when you did this on multiple axis, how did you change the axis? Did you just
What you have as a vacuum chuck, I used the chuck without a vacuum, and then used my live center on this side of it, and puts it off center.
okay? So and you just worked your way towards the middle doing it. So
Yeah, and each time I turn it just a little bit smaller on each of the last 3. They're 120 degrees apart. And then the final one is the center where the wolf is cut. And you just cut a medallion. And I went to images on Google and got a wolf head, and just I actually glued it on there, and then burned through it and carved through it. And the finish itself, I wanted it to look like it was 100 years old, because it was, just a plain older piece of wood, and the black did exactly what I wanted it to. It just made it look old.
right. It's messing with my head, the illusion of those. I almost have to see this thing. How thick is it? How deep is the
It
the
started 2 inches thick.
ply? Okay. Because the illusion is that it's deeper. At least the way when I look at it, I thought this was far deeper than 2 inches.
I agree.
So-
Yeah.
Well, what I started doing after I did this one, I wanted to see what I could do with just off the shelf 3/4 inch boards that were curly maple. And if you round the back of it just a little bit, you can use the same process and it looks a whole lot deeper than 3/4 of an inch when you're done. I agree with you. I like that process. So that's why I was doing it.
Very nice. That's very unusual. Like I said, I almost have to see this in real life to, because it's screwing my head, or maybe just a picture kind of taken at a very low angle with it sitting down flat almost or something. But no, just because no, but it's and the effect of the finish, I think you got right on because it has that antique look to it. So nicely done.
It also saves a bunch of sanding too. So
Yeah,
you can claim I was just being lazy.
I meant it to be like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, would you consider doing a breakout on this?
Sure. I mean, it's real simple to do because I mean, it's just a multi-axis platter. I took a class from Doug Fisher about 10 years ago and started copying his basic principle and just using different tools because all the long marks in there, they're just a pointy scraper that didn't require any tools other than that. And then a 2-inch Arbortech are the little short indentations in it. So it's very simple to do. But for any sort of breakout, see, I'm in Greensboro, so probably want to be somewhere closer.
Oh.
Well, that's very well done. Thanks.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, thank you.
All right, Michael, back to you.
Back to the norm, no puns here, just the basket illusion bowl. This is all segmented, all hard maple. What are my dimensions? 10 inches diameter, 3.5 tall. To go to the next one, it is, and everybody always says that, so I apologize. It's considered a squash blossom, but typically the squash blossom is 5 what do you call it, petals, and this one's 6 just because I needed a repeating pattern to fit how many segments I had or how many divisions, but that's what this is. Segmented maple bowl and that basket illusion format.
Are you sure you're not older and you saw this when CBS went off the air at 11 o'clock?
That's exactly what happened. Yes.
Yeah.
Brought me back to my childhood days.
Yeah.
Where's the fish?
There's no fish, sorry. It's just the squash blossom.
Beautiful.
Thank you. It was fun. I did, so, you guys have seen a lot of the vessels I've done. And I think the vessels, I'll probably stick with those because coloring the exterior of them is super easy. Don't get me wrong, it's a pain, but it's easy. I did not anticipate what a pain it was going to be to try and color the beads on the inside of that turn with a pen that didn't fit cleanly inside the bowl with your hand at the same time. So it actually was kind of challenging. I'm not sure I'll be doing a whole lot of bowl basket illusion pieces. I'll stick with platters or vessels.
We're just gonna go bigger.
Yeah, that's true.
The other
That's another
challenge is that the patterns on the outside have to match the patterns on the inside, although they're not actually the same size. I mean, because the diameter is a little bigger on the outside, right? So
correct. But on the divisions or on the indexes, they do line up. But you're right, it is slightly larger on the outside. And I only submitted 2 photos, but if you flipped it over on its face and you looked at the bottom of it, it would look the same pattern as you see if you look down the inside of the bowl.
Right. No, that's yeah, just trying to make sure that all I gotta do is miss one square, the whole thing's off by one box. Yeah, God.
I've spent an evening scraping off dye before, yes.
More, more patience than me there, Michael.
Yeah.
First, you have to
Well,
start
the
with a
downside
segment.
is, well, that's true. Yeah, you build the bowl, then you turn the bowl, then you index it and then burn it and then dye
Yeah.
it and yeah.
You
The
make a
problem is,
segmented piece and turn it, and you're not even halfway there.
Right, right. Yeah, you're about a third of the way there, not in terms of time, but in terms of process, yeah.
I bet you enjoy
The downside
fishing
is
too.
I can't, yes, well, that's why it's called fishing. The downside is you just can't do this in production mode. You just can't crank the pieces out. It takes me forever to finish a piece where I can actually get it done and then take a picture. And it's been, 3-4 weeks, sometimes maybe a month and a half from the time I started it to the time I actually took a picture of it.
Do you do one start to finish, or do you kind of have a number of them in process?
I have right now 1, 2, 3. I have 4 in process right now. So I've cut up all my segments or my wedges, and if I know I'm doing multiples of a similar size vessel that I could have enough room to play with and change the shape a little bit, I'll cut up all those wedges at one time, and then I'll glue them all together at one time, and then I'll sand them and build the vessel, and then I turn them and burn them. And then after I get done with all that, I have all these blank slates to sit around and color for weeks on end.
That's a stunning pattern. I'd like that pattern a lot. Just the way this goes in there. I mean, that's very appealing.
Thanks. It's definitely more traditional. You guys have seen my other stuff. It's very non-traditional, but this piece, I don't know. I just like the way that squash blossom looked inside of a bowl.
Wonder how that would photograph if you put it on a mirror. Try
Oh,
that.
wow.
Might be
Yeah, I
worth
was
trying.
about to say, great picture too.
Thanks.
All right.
Michael.
As usual, Michael, very nice.
Thank you.
All right. I think we're down to me, which is the last ones here. This is a piece of another of Mike Smith's burn pile. It's a piece of box elder burl that was so punky that it would I had to put a glue block on it just to put it onto the lathe because there wasn't anything sound enough to hold it in a chuck. So I rough turned this and then stabilized it and then put it back on the lathe and finished it. It's about 9 inches in diameter, about 3.5 inches tall. And it's just a simple form, but just the figure and the patterning in it, just I don't know, there's something about it. And when you stabilize a piece like this, that it gives it depth because the finish actually is all the way through it. And so there's just something about wood that's been stabilized that it gives it some. The only way I can describe is it just gives it depth when you turn it. But I
Steve, even though
intentionally
you
got,
stabilize that, did you put a finish on it or you just buff it with the stabilizing?
so it's stabilized. I think on this one I wiped on a very thin coat of seal cell and then wiped it all off and then I buffed it.
Very cool.
And I didn't buff it with any kind of abrasive. It's just waxed because with all those holes in it, if you used the white diamond or any of that stuff, it would get in all the crevices. So it's just it's got a really thin coat of seal cell and then all wiped off and then buffed. Actually, you know what? I'm sorry. I put lacquer on this one. I have another one that I did the seal cell, but this one has some matte finish lacquer on it.
Yeah, that would have tore up your buffing wheel or you.
No, I buffed some of those. I have a round. So I have the 4-inch that they look like a softball.
Yeah, the Beal balls. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they actually will work. They're not as anywhere near as grabby as the 8-inch wheels are on the buffer. So I use those a lot. So
It will rip it out of your hand real quick.
so all right.
Does stabilizing fill the little holes or most of them?
So stabilizing will not. You can see on this view here that these holes that are 1/8 inch. It does not fill voids.
Okay.
It fills the cells where it was punky. And this thing's hard now. I mean, it's not at all punky, but again, this thing was so soft that you could take your fingernail and just take off wood. You didn't even need a tool. There was a cloud of dust when I tried to put a gouge onto it. So, but the problem is that if you don't rough turn it before you stabilize it, you'd put $40 worth of cactus juice in this because it would be like a big sponge. So you need to get rid of all the stuff, all the interior stuff, and because it uses so much resin, because this thing was mostly air before I started. So
Wow.
Cool.
so that's and then the next piece is we had a demo. Phil Rose did a demo of working with Burl a while back, and so this is about 16 inches long. It's a big leaf maple burl, so the bottom is all there's no holding on the bottom at all, and I just made these when I first made this. I had little brass legs on it, and my son came over to the house and said that looks terrible. So I made these little ebony feet that slid over the little brass rods. So made it instead. So one of the things I like about this piece is that there's one view looking at it, and you see this, the natural burl edges there. But if you look at it from the other side, it's like almost like two different pieces, and it looks like there's a bend in here. This is a smooth curve. That there's a little, that dark streak there makes it look like there's something there. But I think it's cool because you get two totally different images of this piece depending upon which side you're looking at. So
Yeah.
So
Explain how you held it in the.
Well, I took the liberty, since I knew we'd have time tonight, and I am the president, so I added a third picture. Because I didn't want to have to try to explain this. So these wedges are held on to. So this is a piece of, it's 2 layers of 3/4 inch cabinet grade plywood that I got out of a cabinet maker's scrap bin. So it's dead flat, and it's got a 4-inch faceplate on the back side of it. And I use it for all sorts of things like this. But these are just pieces of pine that are hot melt glued onto this substrate, and then hot melt glued onto the bottom of the burl. And I positioned the burl where I wanted it and put some temporary spacers under it, and then I just put these spacers in and put a big glob of hot melt glue on the bottom of the wedge and the top of the wedge. And to get it off, you just spray it with, I have a little squirt bottle with denatured alcohol in it, and it releases the hot melt glue from the burl. And so it just comes right off. And I just do one wedge at a time, and just pry it up. So I do as much as I can with it on, with the tailstock up, and until I get to the center of the bowl, I'm doing it with the tailstock. But I've done several of these, and I haven't had any come off. I mean, that hot melt glue is pretty tenacious when it's set up right. So and I used the better glue, but I mean, I said when Phil Rose did that demo, I mean, he talked about releasing hot melt glue with denatured alcohol, and it works great. I mean, it's just,
Mhm.
it's almost instant that it lets go. So anyway, so that's how it's held. So
Do you have a do you have a counterbalance?
um, on this one, I do not. I actually, you know what? I do, Jim. I did put one on here. I have a 2-pound lead scuba diving weight
Yeah.
that is screwed to the back of this. And since I did this one piece, I put a piece of T-track on there, and I put that weight. I actually
Oh,
fastened the I actually screwed into the lead weight with the counterpart of the T-track, and so I have it on there, and I can just mount it. I can slide it where I need it, and I made sure that I put a keeper through the end of the T-track, so if it does loosen up, that weight's not going to come out. And it's actually more secure than it is, I think, that if I was screwing it right to it, because it's machined right into the weight now. So
I have a bright white section in my wall where the counterweight came off,
yeah.
went through the wall.
Oh, geez.
The other thing is that huge piece of mass, when you turn your lathe off, if you don't have the set screw set, and that'll come off. It
Yep.
unscrews itself. And if you've ever seen the Tasmanian devil, you have to see one of these come off, because it runs around the shop. You just get out of the way.
No, you're right. I have had, so yeah, there's a lot of mass there, and it's eccentric, and you know somebody asked me, whether having a robust lathe may be a better turner, and I said no. I mean, it makes it more fun to turn sometimes, but every once in a while you come up to something where just having the mass and the side, the extra 5 inches of over the bed allows you to do stuff like this. So there are times when, but for 99% of what I do, it's just more fun. But
You could always come up to Franklin, Tim.
yeah. One of these days, Craig, I'm going to take you up on that, because I have some bigger pieces that I might have to turn. So either that, I have to get the outboard turning attachment for this one. But yeah, but the fact that I can use the tailstock for most of it on this particular thing. I have some pieces that are about 24 inches long and about 18 inches wide. They're relatively flat burl caps that I want to try this on. I just haven't. But haven't gotten around to it yet. But they're sitting on my bench looking at me. But I figured I'd do a couple of these small ones. But I've done. This is the third one of these I've done, and so I'll just have to see. I actually had the idea of trying to do one and running it, trying to put it on that sled through my wide belt sander, just to get a perfectly flat surface, and then doing a bowl without any relief on it. I may try one of those to because it's really hard to get a dead flat surface on the lathe, and so I thought if I had it on that board, and then use that board as a base, and then run that through my drum sander to get a flat surface, and then just so there wouldn't be a rim of the bowl sticking up. It would just be all down into it. I may just try that and see how it works. But I put this little bit of relief in here just because I was having trouble getting it flat. The wood was had a couple soft spots in it. So, and that is finished with just seal cell on the top, and I use Krylon matte, that Krylon fixer, that matte spray. That's I think they call it a fixer. I sprayed that on the bottom just to seal it, but the top has seal cell on it.
Cool.
Did you have to, I know sanding is not the right word on the Burl surface, but did you have to clean that up any?
So I have a Fordham tool that has a 1/4 inch collet in it, and I bought some wire wheels that are, that actually they're 1/8 inch shaft wire wheels. And that's what I used to I didn't have to do it all over, but there was some, again, this is another rescue piece of Burl. So there was some areas there that were a little discolored and stuff. And so I just, I find that works very well, and you can get away with it on Burl because even if you create some texture on it, it looks like Burl. I mean, people don't know what it's supposed to look like. So,
Yeah.
but I bought on Amazon, there was a set of, they're about 1.25 inches. So there's some that are just like pencil tips. There's some that are 1.25 inches flat, and then there's some that are cup, like a little cup shape, and they don't last long. And I found that I wear a leather apron when I use them because it embeds those little wire shards in your clothes if you don't. And then they get in the washing machine, and then they get into other stuff. So that's not a good thing, but that's how I clean the Burl.
Okay, thank you.
They also make a nylon flap wheel that is about 3 inches in diameter that has, I think it's 100 grit. It's actually bristles. It's not flap. It's just I think it's a 3M wheel that it's 3 inches, and it's about a 1/4 inch thick, and you put it in just in a drill, and it has grit in the edges of the wheel, so you can use that to clean up the Burl.
Yeah, I think there's different colors of those too, right?
Yeah.
It would be the grits, yeah.
All right. Well, that is our
Do we
demonstration.
have